New at 6, the fight to save a 154-year-old West End church ends with a whimper. Last month, the city panel declined to designate the building as a local historic landmark. The I-Team first told you about this building back in July, when FC Cincinnati requested a demolition permit for the city's second oldest synagogue structure. Investigative reporter Dan Monk has been following this story ever since, and he says the building's days are now numbered.
It's the church that gave birth to a civil rights anthem.
This is where the song came from.
Associate Pastor Todd Ingram said Revelation Baptist Church is where Louise Shropshire worked as a music minister in the 1950s. Her 1954 song was adapted for the civil rights movement in the 60s. That's when she played it for Dr. Martin Luther King and the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, who was Revelation's pastor at the time.
They had dinner over her and her husband's house, and after some talk and after playing a bit on the piano, there was more conversation and an encouragement and an urging to use that song.
Now part of American history, the song could endure for centuries, but the building's days are numbered. FC Cincinnati bought this church in May and secured a demolition permit for it in September. Last month, a last-ditch effort to preserve the building ended when the Historic Conservation Review Board rejected its staff advice to designate the structure as a local historic landmark.
It hurts the city as a whole. I mean, our history is something that we share collectively.
Historic preservation activist Mike Morgan says the denial of landmark status makes it much more difficult to save the building through political activism. Councilman Chris Seelbach, who requested the historic designation in August, withdrew his request in late November, which means council will not be asked to review the decision.
Councilman Seelbach became a champion of this. I think that was very laudable, but kind of gave up that fight, and I suspect that he gave up that fight because he looked around the room, he counted votes, and saw that it was pointless.
West End resident Elijah Thomas says he would be okay with the building's demolition if FC Cincinnati brings something better to replace it.
I just hope that they make this building something that the whole West End can just come and stand right here and be like, okay, you did a good job with that.
Ingram says his church will salvage the building's ornate stained glass windows and other architectural features for use in a new church, possibly in North College Hill.
Even though the building goes away, the church still lives on.
Whatever FC does with that site, it's not going to have the same latent economic value as this history does. And once it's lost, it's lost.
We reached out to FC Cincinnati, Councilman Seelbach, and two members of the Historic Conservation Board. None of them wanted to talk to us on camera. Seelbach's chief of staff told us that the councilman accomplished his goal of sparking a formal review of the building's historic significance. FC Cincinnati says it has no demolition date set yet for the building. Dan Monk, 9 on your side.